When I first started putting myself there, I wanted everything to be perfect, which doesn't exist. So whatever I was going to do, I wanted to make sure that I gave it my best all. But then I realised that in the element of play and testing yourself and putting yourself out there is that you're allowed to make mistakes. My name is Aimee McCartney. I'm a proud Aboriginal woman. I love colour. I love to play in that space through fashion, texture, paint, and various other mediums. Why would I hide that?
Today I'm here with the lovely Aimee McCartney. We're in her studio. Aimee, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and just introduce yourself?
Lovely. My name's Aimee McCartney. I'm a contemporary Aboriginal artist under the name of Luruk-in, which means your sister in Taungurung language of the Eastern Kulin Nations. I am a proud Taungurung, Wotjobaluk, Wemba Wemba and Boon Wurrung woman from Victoria.
And my name's Scott. We're here today on Gunnakurna country, and I do want to pay my respects to elders past and present, but also thank you so much for inviting me into your space and into your studio as well. My absolute pleasure. So great to come inside your studio and have a look at where you create some of your amazing artwork as well. Perhaps maybe a starting point just could be, for people who might not know you, just how did you get into the world of art? Like how did you get started as an artist?
God, very, very good question. Going back a few years, I've always been creative ever since I was a little girl. My mother's creative, the women in my family, there's artists, there's weavers, muralists, etc. So art was always a part of growing up. And it was actually, I didn't major in it at university, but I majored in Australian history and archaeology. And a lot of the subjects that I had to take had to do with either contemporary art or Baroque style and, the Vincent van Goghs and, just absolutely incredible people that I enjoy going to visit in major exhibitions and museums. So I suppose it was always there. Like there was always canvases, there was always things to do. I would say for a large period, I was actually creating art for friends and family for big occasions such as the birth of their child, getting married. I completed a piece for a colleague of mine who completed chemo. And it was actually during the pandemic where my workplace and my community engagement role really was halted. And so I tried to do all of the leadership forums and all the bits and pieces that you can do online. And my husband actually said to me, Aimee, you do these beautiful pieces. Like, why don't you take the time to just sit down and play? And probably following on from that is that, my mother, when I was a young girl, was always in love with Ken Doan, which is an Australian artist here based out of Sydney. And I do believe that his influence from such a young age, when we go up to the Gold Coast, Sydney, wherever we'll be, I suppose made me think of how I see the world in a different way, and that's through colour.
With play, I'd just love to kind of hear a little bit more about that. So as a change your way of thinking about what it means to engage with other people or talk with other people and things like that?
Absolutely. I suppose when I came out of university, started working full-time in state and federal government and then a little bit in corporate, I just felt like I never had any time to be able to play unless there was a particular reason for it. And then there was so much time to play. And I loved testing out new colours and, going to an art store and buying all these things and actually taking a vested interest, which I did when I was in high school, primary school. But there was that period where it was almost like, hey, you're an adult now. You need to switch on. You need to find a job. You need to be in your black blazer, your black skirt, your heels, go to work, blend in, do not stand out. And not that anybody told me this, it was just the perception of coming in as an 18-year-old through to 21 in the corporate and government spaces where I went, oh, nobody really wears a pop of colour. And, people have been here for many, many years. They must enjoy their work. And so when I get to play and I get to, particularly colours and textures, I found out that I particularly don't like working with browns and ochres. I can from time to time, but I actually was really attracted to the pinks, yellows, oranges, purples, greens, things that have just, I suppose, were so different to what I was wearing and putting out there to the world. So when I get a canvas and I just sit there, I don't know what I'm going to produce. I don't know what colours I'm going to pick. It's just a bit intuitive.
The other side of art is sometimes just it is about challenging that conception and not to go in, because I know art is always saying, we're challenging conventions, but it kind of also is.
Yes.
And it can be done in such a subtle way as well, or a bright way.
Yeah.
But even to kind of show people, actually, there's nothing wrong with something that's bright, or telling stories in different ways, or wearing color in different ways. And it's coming back to your point about play as well, is to say, hey, we don't have to do it this way. Because everyone seems to be doing it. Sometimes all it needs is one person to say, let me try this other thing. And sometimes that's all that's needed to just start something new.
Yes. Yes, no, I definitely agree. In the Aboriginal art space, you would see traditionally around Australia, the browns, the ochres, very much out there. And that is what we had our mob for many, many years, to be able to take the resources from the land to produce pieces on canvas, rock art, whatever it might be. And now that there's an avenue where you can walk into various different shops and look at all the different colours and go, I might test that out today. I've never seen that colour before. That will actually work with this. And sometimes it comes down to, there might be a moment where I'm walking through the city, I'm walking through the park, I'm at work, and I see something where I go, I can see about 3 or 4 different colours. It could be a sunset, a sunrise, or it could be how the sun hits a gum tree, or how the sun reflects in a pool of water after the rain. And I just see various different colours. It just makes me happy. And I take those moments and I go, hey, I would like to replicate that. How it looks, I'm not too sure, but there's the symbolism factor in that.
Absolutely. And I think I love that you talked about, I guess, the origin, so to speak, of Aboriginal art, because yes, so much art created by just various cultures around the world started with what materials do we have around us. And so the art takes on the color of that. But what you're doing, because now there is more resources and options, there's also the adaptation, the evolution, the more opportunities that can be created. And it allows for storytelling in different ways. Yeah. I've mentioned to you in previous conversations that sometimes, we will go and talk to a client and they'll say, do you have, Indigenous art or Aboriginal art? And we often start with, what do you mean by that? Because, in your case, you've not done the quote unquote traditional, you've sort of pushed that dynamic of it. But that's part of the joy of this new expression or evolving of expression of storytelling. And I think in some ways it's really beautiful, because it means that it opens it up to different ways of storytelling for different people to be connected in different ways.
Absolutely. And even yesterday I was at a market where someone I know within my local community came up to me and was just asking questions like, hey, how do you know what colour to choose? How do you know that's going to work with this? And majority of the time, in most of his questions, I say, I just don't know. It's how I feel at that moment, what I'm wanting to produce. Sometimes I'll do multiple layers, and that builds the foundation. That could be a riverway, it could be mountains, etc., to utilize that texture. But I suppose I want to make sure that the stories that I'm putting forth as an Aboriginal artist and telling stories from a topographic perspective is that this land is not flat. There is so many undulations and things that have occurred over many, many thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. And then if I can take that river that has always been there and represent that in a way that is more textured and not necessarily just a squiggly line, and I'm able to convey that to the audience, it's just really powerful. Because for us, rivers, mountains are very, very important in Aboriginal culture all across the country. And, just to be able to, as a next generation Aboriginal artist, utilising colour to be able to tell those stories where the element of colour theory comes into it as well, and how colour can really invoke a feeling upon looking at it.
For sure. And it strikes me again, listening to you talk about this and with such energy as well, I almost draw a circle between your play of colour and this evolution and what we mentioned before about the corporate space being sort of greys and and challenging that system. It can be done with respect for the tradition, but it's evolution. And I think there's something about the word that you mentioned there, relation. It is our relation to country and relation to land and waters, and recognizing that, yes, it does change and it does evolve over time. And we're also telling stories in different ways to people who haven't had a chance. And so it, in many ways, challenges us to say, well, actually, part of this is recognition of us evolving as a society is evolving with different technologies, with different tools, with different mediums, with different messages. And if we can do this, and it means a new cohort or a new part of a population goes, I wasn't on the train before, but this has got me in, and now I'm on the train. Yep, this has been my pathway in.
Yes.
Then that's like really fantastic.
It's always so exciting in the art space. I am a big believer of going to support artists, and so I myself, I love, and as a part of my creative practice, love going to exhibitions and seeing what people are creating and how they're pushing the boundary and testing, I suppose, the norm. And but by testing it, creating it that it is business as usual to use colour and texture and whatever medium it might be. And I love making sure that educate myself through other people's arts and contribute back to the Australian arts community by visiting and, reaching out and talking. And that's the biggest thing, relationships. And the more that you expose yourself to these spaces, I feel personally more well-rounded as an individual living in contemporary Australia.
Definitely. I think one of the biggest challenges in the art space that not just in the art space, but in the broader community space, we do see a lot of division, right?
Yes.
We do see a lot of groups of people that sort of get stuck together, and it just sometimes feels like it's harder to connect. And for me, I'm always interested in, well, what are the things that connect us, and what are the things that we have in common? What are things that we can use? And this is why sometimes I love art, because even though, yes, I know there's categories of art that can be considered as divisive or anything like that, but it's still just a different way of looking at a story, through a different medium, for example. And so it's great that there's also this exploration. And as an artist, I'm sure you understand this as well, that you never quite get it right. Every piece is like, well, I guess here's a thing.
Yes. And I've learned that as an artist. When I first started putting myself there, I wanted everything to be perfect, which doesn't exist. And from murals to canvas to prints to markets, whatever I was going to do, I wanted to make sure that I gave it my best all. But then I realized that in the element of play and testing yourself and putting yourself out there is that you're allowed to make mistakes. And, there's plenty of pieces that I looked at and I go, you know what, the client loved it. I really enjoyed making it, but I didn't necessarily feel 100% me. But it was the client that I was working for. And it could be the use of colour or the area I was painting, etc., where I haven't had that real personal connection, still on my countries, like from my mother and father's side, but I haven't been there in a very long time. So I know for me, I really like connecting to country, and that could be walking outside and just being in the sun for 15, 20 minutes. It could be going to the local park, sitting by the river, walking my dogs, listening to the magpies, which were going absolutely really high pitch earlier today, and the cockatoos and various other, plants that are around this beautiful area I get to call home. And that's my source of inspiration. And, every artist is different. Some people can see colours and textures through various different conversations and mediums or sounds. But for me, it's around what I see outside my house, outside the structure of my house, workplace, the world that we live in, and what's actually out there is what's been there for hundreds of thousands of years.
Absolutely. You mentioned just then that some of the challenges, especially when you've been creating a piece for a client, and a bit of your connection inside the artwork itself. I am curious to sort of look on the darker side of saying, well, what have been some of the challenges that you've experienced or currently experienced as an artist? It doesn't have to be yourself. It could also be just what you observe.
Oh, absolutely. First thing that pops into my mind is that being able to play doesn't always pay your bills. So I still work full time. I work in the Royal Australian Air Force. I have a full-time job. I'm a current serving member. So all of the elements that go with that and serving your nation. So, I don't always get the time during the day to paint, usually the weekends or when I have time off from work. So here sitting in this, my temporary art studio, which is also just the fourth bedroom of my house, I'm painting here late at night. It can be difficult to manage a schedule when you work full-time. You've got commitments, etc., as opposed to the stereotype that I'm a full-time artist, which is definitely not the case. Hopefully at one point in my life, I would love to do it. So that's one challenge. Two, putting yourself out there. It is really hard to put your face, yourself, because it's not just about your artwork on social media or in a gallery. It's about you. People are interested in you. And I myself, I'm an extrovert and I love talking to people, but I'm also introverted at the same time, where I don't want my whole life to be on social media, etc. Got a husband, 2 dogs, friends, family, one of 9 children. So I really are very protective of my personal life and also my career in the Royal Australian Air Force. So, that's a challenge in itself. Like, how much do you put there out for the world? And being authentic to yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the final thing for me is, with art, it is so subjective. So not everyone's going to like your art, and especially as an Aboriginal artist, and being from Victoria and having blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin, there is racism and various comments that are made about my type of art and who I am as a person. So that could be really hard sometimes and can diminish my energy when it comes to putting together my pieces, because I've shown a bit of myself, put myself out there, and there might be a negative comment. Takes a long time to build a thicker skin with the online, social media, but at the same time, it's never going to stop me from doing what I love.
No, thank you so much for sharing. And I feel you insofar as that challenge, that authenticity part. There's always that level of vulnerability. In general, people talk a great deal about vulnerability, but it does come with the other side of it, right? Which is that it opens us up for attack, or whatever
scrutiny,
that might be.
Anything that might be.
And everyone has an opinion. Everyone just wants to say something.
And that is their right. They're allowed to have an opinion.
Exactly. And so it's interesting that we have that dual nature relationship. I noticed that it can be tough to do it. Is there any techniques or mindsets or approaches, or a philosophy for yourself of, how do you kind of
get myself into
get yourself back into the play part of things?
It can be hard. Sitting in front of a computer 8-9 hours a day, coming home, cook, clean, whatever it might. Sometimes I don't paint for weeks. As you can see, there's an artwork behind me that is still in the process, and that's because I've got to the point and I'm going to step away because I'm thinking about a particular element. And there will be a day where I just have this abundance of energy. It could be I've had some time to myself the night before, and so feeling really energized, or I could have been out at a social function and seen something that I really resonate with, or a conversation I've had that has really uplifted me. And then I come in here in the morning with my cup of tea and just start playing. Definitely within my line of work, where I wear a uniform every day, my hair is pulled back in a bun. There are various rules and regulations that you abide to as a current serving member. And, I've done that for many, many years. So when I get an opportunity to step out of work, or we have a casual close day, I'm always in bright, bold clothing, just wanting to show my personality, because for a while I hid it, and it was that conformity of wanting to fit in a workplace, or it could be in a social space, etc. But now with time and energy and also maturity, I sit back and I go, well, my name is Aimee McCartney. I'm a proud Aboriginal woman. I love colour. I love to play in that space through fashion, texture, paint, and various other mediums. Why would I hide that? And, it's always fun to take off your uniform, put on something really funky and something that makes me really happy when going out and projecting my personality outside of the workplace.
So let's talk a little bit about some of your artwork. Can you tell us about a couple of your pieces and just tell us a bit about either the message or the inspiration, or even maybe what you want people to take away from it?
Yeah, definitely. The piece that comes to mind is Luruk, which is mountain range. Luruk is the Taungurung word for mountain range, and this particular piece represents my mother's side of the family, the Taungurung people of the Eastern Kulin Nations here in Victoria. For us, we are the mountain people, because our landscape is just full of mountains, beautiful ranges, etc. And so for me, when I am lucky enough to go back home or to work on country, there is always the mountains surrounding me. And for me, my family, and also our culture, the mountains have been there from the test of time through bushfires, flooding, everything. They've seen it all, and they hold the knowledge and sometimes the answers to what's moving forward. And so for that particular piece, I wanted to make it very, very bright, and to showcase the depth of the importance of mountains in our culture. And because, as I said, they're always there. They stand the test of time. People look to them for guidance. People, when visiting Taungurung country, go for the mountain ranges, and that could be, Mount Hotham, it could be various other places, and people go there for a certain reason because of their height, their elevation, the undulations of country. So for me, I wanted to create a piece that represented and celebrated their enduring relationship with the country and Taungurung country. So absolutely love it. It's a really happy piece. I actually would have it up in my house if I could, and it's one of my husband's favourites. And it really puts together a message of take your time wherever you are to look around, because there are always something there that holds a really strong presence. And for Taungurung people, it is the mountains.
Amazing, thank you. And you've got another piece that you focused on recently.
Yes, yeah, that's called My Place. And so it is a topographical view of the area that my family on Taungurung country lived for many, many generations. So there is a meeting place, there is people around it, mountains either corner of the artwork, and riverways, etc. So I wanted to really showcase that even though we live off country now, either in Melbourne or me in Gippsland, we always have that really strong urge to return to country. And we feel it, we live and breathe it. And for me to be able to produce a piece that celebrates my place and our history and our traditions that have been here since millennia, and to be able to showcase that through symbolism, through Aboriginal art, it is really important to take that step back and recognise the oldest living culture in the world, and that we're still here as proud Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and that our artwork has evolved over many, many centuries, and that there is, I suppose, a generation of Aboriginal artists that see it in a different way and want to hone in on their roots and make sure they represent Aboriginal culture from the millennia to the current day.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your art, for the conversation. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
They can find me at www.luruk-in.com.au, on Instagram, luruk-in.art, and same with Facebook.
Fantastic. All the details will be, of course, in the comments. Please do check out Aimee's art. We'll be showing it around town, so follow for more, and hope you really enjoy this conversation. And the classic like and subscribe and follow for more.
See you. Thank you.